Good morning and welcome. I want to begin our time together today by proposing a foundational premise, a single powerful idea upon which everything else we will discuss is built. It is an idea so fundamental, yet so profoundly overlooked in our modern world, that grasping it fully has the power to alter the entire trajectory of your life. It is this: the quality of your life in all its facets will never exceed the quality of your thinking. Let me say that again. The quality of your life, your health, your wealth, your relationships, your inner peace will never, by some accident or stroke of luck, rise above the established level of the quality of your own mind. Your thinking is the hidden governor. It is the invisible ceiling on your potential. Consider the source of a great river. High in the mountains, it may begin as a small, humble spring. But the direction that spring flows, the path it carves, the terrain it nourishes, all of it determines the eventual character of the mighty river downstream. Your thinking is the source of the river of your life. And if the source is muddled, if it is aimless, if it is contaminated, then the entire river, no matter how long it flows, will carry that contamination with it. Most people, however, never examine the source. They spend their lives downstream complaining about the pollution, battling the turbulent currents, and wondering why their journey is so difficult. They never make the arduous journey upstream to the source itself. They assume that thinking just happens. They believe it is an automatic process, a biological function, as involuntary as breathing or the beating of the heart. They wake up, they go through the motions of their day, they react to emails, they react to the news, they react to traffic. They experience a cascade of thoughts, opinions, and emotions, and they believe that this chaotic internal monologue is thinking. They treat the most powerful, creative, and world-altering tool in the known universe, the human mind, as a passive receptacle for whatever the world decides to throw at it on any given day. But this is the great deception of a life lived by default. Real thinking, the kind of thinking that builds empires, solves intractable problems, fosters deep relationships, and creates a life of profound satisfaction, is not automatic. It is not a biological reflex. It is a skill. It is a discipline. It is perhaps the highest and most difficult of all human arts. And like any art, it must be learned, practiced, and cultivated with deliberate, consistent effort. Why is this art so rarely practiced? Why do we not have classes in school on how to think? It is because we live in an age that has formed a subtle conspiracy against contemplation. There are forces at work that actively discourage the very act of deep, deliberate thought. The first of these forces is the deception of automaticity. Your brain is a marvel of efficiency. To save energy, it is designed to turn repeated actions and thoughts into automatic habits. This is a brilliant survival mechanism. It allows you to drive a car or brush your teeth without having to consciously think through every single step. But this same mechanism, when unexamined, becomes a trap. It places your life on autopilot. Your reactions, your beliefs, your limitations, they become so deeply ingrained that you cease to recognize them as choices. You are living out a program you did not consciously write. The second force is the deception of busyness. Our culture glorifies doing over thinking. Busyness has become a status symbol, a badge of importance. We are too busy to think. We fill every spare moment with tasks, with errands, with noise. But activity without intelligent thought is the cause of most of life's struggles. It is the very definition of inefficiency. It is the act of running faster and faster on a treadmill, sweating and striving, but ultimately going nowhere. The man who is too busy to think is like a woodcutter who is too busy cutting down trees to stop and sharpen his axe. His effort is admirable, but his results will inevitably be poor. And the third force is the deception of reaction. Your modern environment is a symphony of interruption. The notification, the alert, the breaking news banner, they are all designed to provoke an immediate, emotional, and thoughtless reaction. This constant state of alert conditions the mind to be a reactor, not an initiator. It trains you to be a pinball, bounced around by external stimuli, rather than the player deliberately aiming and launching the ball with purpose and strategy. This trio of deceptions, automaticity, busyness, and reaction creates the unexamined mind. And the unexamined mind is the drifter's mind. What are its characteristics? First, It is a reactive mind. It lacks an internal locus of control. It is a ship without a rudder, at the mercy of every passing wave and gust of wind. The person with a reactive mind experiences their life as a series of things that happen to them. Their mood is dictated by the weather. Their financial state is dictated by the economy. Their success is dictated by their boss. They are living a life of effects, never realizing that they have the power to become a cause. Second, it is a borrowed mind. This is a profound and unsettling truth. For most people, the vast majority of their deeply held beliefs, their political opinions, their religious views, their ideas about success and failure are not their own. They have been borrowed. Borrowed wholesale from their parents, from their peer group, from their chosen news channel. The borrowed mind is an echo chamber, not a creative engine. It does not generate new thoughts. It merely repeats the thoughts it has been given. It mistakes the comfort of conformity for the clarity of truth. I challenge you to perform an audit of your own beliefs. How many of them have you personally, rigorously, and independently examined? And how many are simply inherited furniture in the house of your mind? And third, it is an undisciplined mind. An unexamined mind is an untrained muscle. It is weak. It shies away from complexity. It seeks the easy answer over the right answer. It craves the mental junk food of distraction and entertainment over the nutritious meal of a challenging book or a difficult problem. Because it is undisciplined, it is easily swayed, easily discouraged, and easily defeated. I remember this state all too well in my own life. There was a time when I was the very definition of the unexamined mind. I was working hard. Oh, I was working very hard. I was diligent. I was putting in the hours, but I wasn't making progress. My income had been flat for years. My ambitions felt like distant, impossible dreams. I was stuck. I was running on that treadmill, sweating and striving and growing more frustrated by the day. And one day, my great mentor, Mr. Earl Schoaf, a man whose wisdom was as profound as his patience was long, sat me down. He didn't give me a lecture. He didn't give me a list of things to do. He simply asked me a question. A question so simple, yet so devastatingly powerful that it stopped my world in its tracks. He leaned forward, looked me in the eye, and said, "Jim, let me ask you something. How much time do you set aside each week on your calendar to just think?" I was silent, because the answer was 0. He continued, "I don't mean time to worry. Worrying is the misuse of your imagination on things you don't want. I don't mean time to react to your problems. That is just survival. I mean scheduled, deliberate, uninterrupted time to sit down with a blank piece of paper and think. To think about your plans, your philosophy, your progress, to ask the big questions." In that moment, I realized the staggering truth. I had been trying to build a skyscraper of a life with the mental toolkit of a child playing with blocks. I had been neglecting the single most important activity. I had been a woodcutter with a dull axe, complaining about the trees. That day, everything changed. I understood that my lack of success was not due to a lack of effort, but a lack of directed, deliberate thought. I learned that my circumstances were not the problem, my thinking was the problem. And this leads us to the new premise, the premise of a life by design. Thinking is not a passive state, it is the master skill of life. It is the skill that sits above all other skills. It is the skill that allows you to learn faster, to solve problems more effectively, to communicate more clearly, to lead more wisely. Your ability to play the piano is a skill. Your ability to write computer code is a skill. Your ability to sell is a skill. But your ability to think is what allows you to learn those skills, to combine them in unique ways, and to apply them with strategic wisdom. It is the ultimate form of leverage. And because it is a skill, it can be developed. Your mind is not a fixed entity. It is a muscle. And with the right training, the right nutrition, and consistent exercise, it can be developed to an extraordinary degree. That is our purpose here today, to begin that training, to move from being the passive owner of an unexamined mind to becoming the active architect of a deliberate one. Our journey ahead is a structured one. We will not speak in vague platitudes. We will proceed like a master physician. First, we will perform a deep diagnosis. We will examine in detail the specific self-limiting habits of the average thinker. We must understand the disease before we can prescribe the cure. And then we will turn to the prescription. We will lay out, one by one, the 5 powerful disciplines of the deliberate thinker. These are the exercises, the practices, the mental habits that will transform your mind from a rudderless ship into a powerful vessel of creation. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It will require you to challenge your most cherished assumptions. It will require a level of honesty and discipline that is rare. But the reward is the greatest prize life has to offer. The freedom to become the architect of your own soul, the captain of your own destiny. The quality of your life will never exceed the quality of your thinking. Let us therefore begin the noble and essential work of elevating both. We have established our foundational premise that the unexamined mind left to its own devices will drift toward a life of mediocrity. It is the default state of our existence, a subtle hypnosis that lulls our potential to sleep. Now, we must move from this general understanding to a specific and detailed diagnosis. Before we can prescribe a cure, we must first understand the anatomy of the illness. We must act as physicians of the mind, shining a bright, unflinching light on the specific, self-limiting habits of thought that keep the average person trapped. This may be an uncomfortable process. It may feel as though I am describing you personally, and if it does, I urge you not to retreat. For the moment of honest recognition is the first and most crucial step toward genuine transformation. We are not here to judge. We are here to diagnose so that we may then begin to heal. I have found in my years of study that the unexamined mind is afflicted by a set of pervasive and corrosive habits. Let us examine 4 of the most critical. The first and most common is what I call living within the prison of the immediate. Your mind, in its most primitive state, is a survival machine. It is designed to solve the problems of now. It is wired for immediate gratification. For our ancient ancestors, this was a brilliant advantage. Their focus was on finding the next meal, avoiding the predator lurking in the bushes. The long-term future was an unimaginable luxury. But in our modern world, this same biological wiring has become a prison. The prison of the immediate is a way of thinking that sacrifices the great potential of tomorrow for the minor comfort of today. It is a life sentence of short-term decision-making. How does this manifest? Financially, it is the person who lives paycheck to paycheck. They see money not as a seed to be planted for a future harvest, but as a resource to be consumed as quickly as it arrives. They trade their future freedom for the fleeting pleasure of a new gadget or an expensive dinner. They are perpetually trapped in a cycle of earning and spending, never building the capital that could buy their autonomy. They are, in essence, working for their present with no one working for their future. Professionally, it is the person who constantly chooses the easy, urgent task over the difficult, important project. They answer emails all day, feeling busy and productive, while neglecting the one project that could truly advance their career. They avoid learning the new skill because it's difficult and time-consuming now, not realizing that this avoidance guarantees their obsolescence later. And personally, it is the person who chooses the comfort of the couch over the discipline of the workout, the momentary pleasure of the junk food over the long-term vitality of health, the ease of avoiding a difficult conversation over the strength that comes from resolving it. The walls of this prison are built from the bricks of immediate gratification. The routine is predictable, even comfortable, but it is a prison nonetheless. And the sentence is a cruel one. You are condemned to relive today with all its struggles and limitations for the rest of your life. The person trapped in the prison of the immediate is not building a future. They are simply patching up an ever-leaking present. The second habit of the average thinker is becoming lost in the quicksand of complaint. Life will inevitably hand you a steady stream of problems, challenges, and injustices. This is a guarantee. The great dividing line between a life of success and a life of failure is how one chooses to think in the presence of these difficulties. The unexamined mind, when faced with a problem, dwells, it thinks, it becomes a connoisseur of complaint. Why is complaining so seductive? Because it offers a trifecta of false rewards. First, it temporarily absolves you of responsibility. If you can define the problem as someone else's fault, you don't have to do the hard work of solving it. Second, it creates a strange and toxic camaraderie with other complainers. Misery, as they say, loves company. And third, it provides the illusion of engagement without the requirement of effort. The person sinking in the quicksand of complaint becomes an expert on what is wrong with the world. They can give you a doctoral thesis on the unfairness of their boss, the flaws in the economy, and the reasons for their bad luck. Their language is the language of the victim. It's impossible. They always treat me unfairly. I never get a break. This language is not just a description of their reality. It is the very incantation that creates it. This mindset is fueled by a destructive form of what-if thinking. The mind is a powerful servant. It will find the answers to the questions you ask it. The person in the quicksand is constantly asking, what if I fail? What if I am rejected? What if it's too hard? And their faithful mind gets to work, diligently providing a long and detailed list of all the potential ways things can go wrong. This is not problem solving. This is a form of negative goal setting, a rehearsal for defeat. Each complaint, each negative what if is another struggle that causes you to sink deeper into the quicksand of inaction and despair. The third habit is the construction of the fortress of the closed mind. The human ego has a desperate need to be right. To protect this need, the unexamined mind builds a fortress. The walls of this fortress are made of unquestioned beliefs. The moat is filled with confirmation bias. And the guards at the gate are trained to repel any new idea, any challenging piece of information that might threaten the stability of the structure within. This is the echo chamber we discussed, but it is more than that. A fortress is a defensive structure. What is the person with a closed mind defending against? They are defending against the terrifying possibility that they might be wrong. They are defending against the discomfort of uncertainty. They are defending against the effort required to learn and to grow. The person inside this fortress carefully curates their world. They only read the news that confirms their political views. They only associate with people who share their opinions. They dismiss any evidence that contradicts their worldview as stupid or evil. Their mind is not a tool for exploration, it is a tool for validation. The tragic irony is that the fortress, designed to create a feeling of safety, becomes a prison of stagnation. In a world that is constantly changing, the person with a closed mind is left behind, holding an old and increasingly useless map, wondering why they can no longer find their way. The safety of the fortress is the safety of the tomb. It is a place where no growth can occur, because no new light is ever allowed to enter. And this leads us to the fourth and perhaps most subtle habit of the average thinker. It is the addiction to assumption. An assumption is a conclusion based on incomplete information. It is a mental shortcut. And while shortcuts can sometimes be useful, an addiction to them is intellectually fatal. The unexamined mind is an assumption-making machine. It takes one bad experience with a certain type of business and concludes all of those businesses are a scam. It tries a new skill once, fails, and concludes, I'm just not good at that. It sees a wealthy person and concludes, they must have been lucky or dishonest. These assumptions are the invisible bars on the cage of your potential. Each assumption you make without rigorous examination is another door of opportunity you slam shut in your own face. The person who assumes I am not a leader will never seek a leadership position. The person who assumes it's too late for me to start will never begin. The person who assumes they know everything can, by definition, learn nothing. This addiction is rooted in a form of intellectual laziness. It is easier to make a sweeping generalization than it is to do the hard work of gathering evidence, thinking critically, and embracing nuance. Assumptions provide the comfort of a simple black and white world. But the real world, the world of opportunity, is a world of infinite shades of gray. So here we have the four horsemen of the mediocre mind. The prison of the immediate, which sacrifices your future. The quicksand of complaint, which paralyzes your will. The fortress of the closed mind, which prevents your growth. And the addiction to assumption, which closes you off from reality. These are not separate afflictions. They are an interconnected, self-reinforcing system. The person trapped in the prison of the immediate doesn't believe they have time to question their assumptions. Their constant complaining in the quicksand is amplified and validated by the other prisoners inside their fortress. It is a perfect closed loop of limitation. This is the diagnosis. This is the gravity of the default mind. I do not present this diagnosis to discourage you. I present it so that you may recognize the symptoms in yourself. For you cannot heal an illness you do not know you have. You cannot solve a problem you have not clearly defined. This is the nature of the challenge that stands before you. These habits are the enemy. They are the weeds in the garden of your mind. But here is the good news. Here is the profound and life-altering promise. Not a single one of these habits is permanent. They are not tattoos on your character. They are simply well-worn mental paths. And with a new awareness and a new set of disciplines, you can begin to blaze new paths. We have now defined the problem in detail. We have looked with courage into the mirror. We are now prepared to move from diagnosis to cure. We are ready for the prescription, and that is where we will turn our attention next. To the 5 powerful life-altering disciplines of the deliberate thinker. We have now completed our diagnosis. We have stared with unflinching honesty at the habits of the unexamined mind. If any of this has resonated with you, if you have recognized a piece of yourself in this description, please know that you are not alone. This is the default human condition. But you are here because you are not content with the default. You are seeking the tools for a life by design. Before we move from the diagnosis to the prescription to the 5 powerful disciplines that serve as the cure, I want to invite you to make a small commitment. If this journey of self-discovery and mental architecture is one you wish to continue, I would be honored if you would subscribe to this channel. It is a simple act that signals a profound decision. The decision to become a lifelong student of your own mind. Thank you. Now, let us turn from the problem to the solution. Let us begin our study of the prescription. We have now stared with unflinching honesty into the mirror. We have diagnosed the common habits of the unexamined mind, the prison of the immediate, the quicksand of complaint, the fortress of the closed mind, and the addiction to assumption. We have seen how these habits form a self-reinforcing system that pulls us toward a life of mediocrity. To simply be aware of a diagnosis, however, is not enough. A diagnosis without a prescription is merely an autopsy of a life that has not yet been lost. It is an exercise in intellectual curiosity, not a catalyst for transformation. So now, we turn from the problem to the practice. We turn from the diagnosis to the prescription. We turn from the description of the cage to the presentation of the keys that will unlock it. What follows are not tips or tricks. They are not simple life hacks. They are the 5 foundational disciplines of the deliberate thinker. A discipline is not something you do once. It is a practice you commit to for a lifetime. It is the conscious, sustained effort required to forge a new mind, in the same way a blacksmith forges a sword with heat, with pressure, and with a clear design. Let us begin with the discipline that makes all others possible. In our modern world, a world of constant noise and connection, solitude has become a lost art. For many, to be alone with their own thoughts is a terrifying prospect. They fill every spare moment with distraction, a podcast, a video, a stream of social media to avoid the deafening silence of their own inner world. But the architect of a designed life understands a profound truth. You cannot hear the signal through the noise. Deliberate thinking requires deliberate withdrawal. The discipline of solitude is the scheduled, intentional practice of disconnecting from the world in order to connect with yourself. Why is this so crucial? Because in the rush of daily life, you are a piece on the chessboard being moved by the demands of others. In solitude, you ascend. You leave the board and take the seat of the player. You are no longer the one being moved. You are the one contemplating the next move. What does this practice look like? It is not about sitting in a dark room and hoping for inspiration. It is a structured and strategic activity. The time you set aside for solitude, and you must schedule it as you would your most important meeting, is for 3 distinct purposes: review, plan, and create. First, you review. You look backward with the unemotional eye of a strategist. You ask the questions of the forensic auditor we discussed. What were my wins this week? Why? What were my failures? Why? What patterns are emerging in my behavior? To review your life without the distraction of the world's opinions is to see yourself with a clarity that is otherwise impossible. Second, you plan. You look forward with the creative eye of an architect. You design your next day, your next week, your next month. You define your priorities. You ask, what is the most important thing I must accomplish tomorrow to move closer to my long-term vision? This is where you wrestle with the urgent and give primacy to the important. And third, you create. This is the unstructured part of solitude. This is where you allow your mind to wander, to make new connections, to dream. This is where you ask the big philosophical questions. Am I on the right path? Am I becoming the person I wish to be? It is in this quiet space that your most profound insights will be born. You must begin this practice. Start small. 15 minutes a day in a quiet room with a simple notepad and a pen. The physical act of writing slows down your racing mind and crystallizes your thoughts. This is your sanctuary. It is the headquarters from which you will direct the campaign of your own life. A mind, no matter how brilliant, cannot create in a vacuum. To think better, you must feed your mind better raw materials. A mind that is only fed on its own thoughts and experiences will eventually become stale, repetitive, and incestuous. It will atrophy. The discipline of expansion is the direct antidote to the fortress of the closed mind. It is the conscious and deliberate practice of introducing new, high-quality, and often challenging ideas into your mental ecosystem. This discipline has three primary channels. The first and most foundational is reading. You must become a voracious and deliberate reader. Do not read merely to be entertained, read to be challenged. Read to acquire knowledge that others have spent a lifetime gathering. Read books that are above your current level of understanding. Read history to gain perspective. Read biographies to learn from the lives of great men and women. Read philosophy to deepen your thinking. A single idea from a single book can alter the course of your life. The person who does not read lives only one life. The person who reads lives 1,000. Make it a non-negotiable part of your day. The second channel is mentorship. You must actively seek out people who think on a higher level than you do. A mentor, whether a person you know directly or a historical figure you study intensely, can give you a map of the territory ahead. They can save you years of wandering in the wilderness of trial and error. Their wisdom, their experience, their way of framing problems, these are invaluable inputs. To learn from a mentor is to stand on the shoulders of a giant. The third channel is experience. You must deliberately seek out new experiences that force your mind to adapt and grow. Travel to a place you've never been. Attempt to learn a skill that intimidates you. Engage in a respectful conversation with someone who holds a completely opposite worldview. The mind does not expand in the comfortable living room of the familiar. It expands on the rugged frontiers of the new and the challenging. You must become the curator of your own mental diet. A simple rule. For every 1 hour of information you consume for pure entertainment, you must invest several hours in information for your education and expansion. This discipline is the antidote to the quicksand of complaint. It is built on a simple premise. The quality of your life is a direct reflection of the quality of the questions you consistently ask yourself. Questions are the searchlights of the mind. They direct your focus. And whatever you consistently focus on, your mind will work to create. The average thinker asks disempowering questions that focus on limitations. The deliberate thinker asks empowering questions that focus on possibilities. Let us be specific. You must master the art of the reframe. You must reframe the question of agency. The average thinker asks, why is this happening to me? Or whose fault is this? This is the question of the victim. The deliberate thinker asks, given this situation, what is my best move? Or, what is within my control right now? This is the question of the agent, the player, the cause. You must reframe the question of possibility. The average thinker asks the destructive, what if? What if I fail? The deliberate thinker asks the creative, what if? What if this could be the greatest opportunity of my life? What if I could succeed beyond my wildest dreams? What would that look like? This question unlocks the creative, problem-solving parts of your brain. You must reframe the question of potential. The average thinker sees others succeed and thinks, that's for them, not for me. The deliberate thinker asks the great equalizer question, why not me? If another human being with the same basic mental and physical faculties could achieve it. Why not you? This question is not born of arrogance. It is born of a humble recognition of shared human potential. It is a question that dismantles your self-imposed limitations. And finally, you must reframe the question of contribution. The average thinker is focused on what can I get? The deliberate thinker asks, what can I give? How can my unique skills and talents solve a problem for others? This shift from getting to giving is the secret to all wealth and fulfillment. Your rewards in life will always be in direct proportion to the value of your contribution. This is the direct antidote to the prison of the immediate. It is the ability to escape the tyranny of the urgent now and see your life from a higher, longer vantage point. Without perspective, you are a soldier lost in the smoke and chaos of the battle. With perspective, you become the general on the hill, seeing the entire battlefield, anticipating future movements, and making strategic decisions. How do you cultivate this perspective? First, you practice time travel. This is a powerful mental exercise. You project yourself 10, 20 years into the future. You imagine yourself as your older, wiser self. And then you look back at the person you are today, facing the decision you are facing. What advice would that wise future self give you? This exercise almost always reveals the correct path. It instantly distinguishes between the short-term pleasure and the long-term wisdom. Second, you practice historical context. You study history. You realize that the challenges you face today, which feel so overwhelming and unique, are not new. Humanity has faced plagues, wars, economic collapses, and profound uncertainty for millennia. History provides the ultimate perspective. It teaches you resilience. It calms your anxieties. It shows you what is timeless versus what is temporary. And third, you apply the deathbed test. When faced with a major decision, particularly one that involves a choice between security and risk, you ask yourself this simple, sobering question: on the last day of my life, which choice will I regret more, the failure of my attempt or the bitterness of never having tried at all? This question is a powerful clarifier. It cuts through the noise of fear and reveals what is truly important to your soul. We now arrive at the final and most intimate discipline. It is the practice that governs all others, for you can practice solitude, expansion, framing, and perspective, but all of it can be sabotaged by one malevolent force, a destructive inner critic. This discipline is the mastery of your own internal monologue. It is the taming of the voice in your head. The process is one of patient, consistent training. It begins with awareness. You cannot change a conversation you do not realize is happening. You must begin to listen to your own self-talk as if you were a third-party observer. Notice its tone. Is it encouraging or critical? Is it empowering or defeatist? Do not judge it. Simply notice. The second step is interruption and correction. When you hear the voice of the inner critic rise up, you're not smart enough for this. You're going to fail again. You must consciously interrupt it. You must learn to say stop, and then you must correct it with a more rational, truthful statement. Not blind positivity, but rational optimism. That is the voice of fear, not of fact. I may not know how to do this yet, but I am capable of learning. I have overcome challenges before, and I can overcome this one too. The third step is installation. You must proactively install a new voice. You do this through repetition of empowering truths about yourself and, most importantly, by gathering evidence to support them. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are providing your mind with proof that you are trustworthy. Every new skill you learn is proof that you are capable. You must become the master of your own mind, not its victim. Your mind is not your enemy, but it is an untamed, powerful force. It must be disciplined. It must be directed. It must be given a noble purpose. These, then, are the 5 disciplines: solitude, expansion, framing, perspective, and self-direction. They are the cure. They are the tools of the architect. They are the daily practices that will slowly but surely dismantle the prisons and fortresses of the unexamined mind and build in their place a magnificent temple of clarity, wisdom, and power. This is the work. This is the art of thinking. It is not easy, but it is the one work that makes everything else in your life possible. Now that we have the prescription, we must turn to the final question. What is the ultimate purpose of all this effort? What is the masterpiece we are trying to create? This leads us to our concluding thoughts on the commencement of the thinker. And so we arrive at the end of our study. But as I have said before, and as I must say again, this is not an end, it is a commencement. We have taken a long and sometimes difficult journey together. We began with the foundational premise that the unexamined mind, left to its own devices, will drift toward a life of mediocrity. We then acted as physicians, diagnosing the four pervasive habits of this default mind: the self-imposed prison of the immediate, the paralyzing quicksand of complaint, the stagnant fortress of the closed mind, and the insidious addiction to assumption. And then, having looked with unflinching honesty at the diagnosis, we turned to the prescription. We laid out the 5 great disciplines, the powerful antidotes to a life of thoughtless reaction: the discipline of solitude, to create the space for thought; the discipline of expansion, to nourish the mind with new ideas; the discipline of framing, to direct the mind with empowering questions; the discipline of perspective, to guide the mind with long-term vision; and the discipline of self-direction, to master the internal conversation. Now, we must perform the final and most important act. We must perform a great synthesis. We must weave these individual threads into a single, unbreakable cable. We must understand how these disciplines work together, not as a checklist, but as a living, dynamic system for creating a life of power and purpose. And we must answer with absolute clarity the final question: what must I do now? Let us first understand the interplay of these forces. The disciplines you have learned are not separate tactics. They are a synergistic engine. They form what I call the flywheel of thought. Imagine a massive, heavy iron flywheel mounted on an axle. It represents your new life as a deliberate thinker. When it is stationary, it is formidable. The first push requires a tremendous focused effort. It barely moves. This is the hardest part. But then you apply the second push and the third. With each deliberate act, the wheel begins to turn, slowly at first, but with a gathering force. Soon, the momentum of the wheel begins to work with you. Each push adds more speed than the one before, until this massive wheel is spinning with a powerful, unstoppable force, creating its own energy, crushing obstacles in its path. This is the nature of building a new mind. You begin with the first difficult push, the discipline of solitude. You carve out 30 minutes from your day of busyness. It feels unnatural. Your mind rebels. But in that quiet space, you perform the second push, the discipline of expansion. You read 10 pages of a challenging book. A new idea enters your mind. Now, with that new idea, you apply the third push, the discipline of framing. You ask an empowering question about it. How could this apply to my life? Why not me? This question ignites a spark of possibility. That spark allows you to apply the fourth push, the discipline of perspective. You begin to see your long-term future in a new light, shaped by this new idea. The vision becomes clearer. And all of this is governed by the steady, guiding hand of the fifth push, the discipline of self-direction. You guard your internal dialogue, protecting this fragile new momentum from the old voices of doubt and cynicism. What happens next is the magic of the flywheel. The small result of this process, a new insight, a surge of clarity, comes back around and reinforces your commitment to the discipline of solitude. It was valuable, you realize. So you do it again the next day. But this time, the push is slightly easier. The wheel turns a little faster. Your renewed commitment to solitude and expansion feeds you another new idea. Your practice with the discipline of framing makes you better at asking questions. Your growing perspective makes your vision even sharper. Your self-direction becomes more authoritative. Do you see the cycle? Each discipline feeds and strengthens the others. Solitude creates the space for expansion. Expansion provides the material for framing. Framing directs your perspective. Perspective gives purpose to your self-direction. And your self-direction gives you the strength to return to solitude. This is how momentum is born. This is how you move from a life of fighting against the gravity of the default to a life powered by the momentum of deliberate thought. You are no longer just pushing, the wheel is beginning to pull you. And what is the prize for all this effort? What is the ultimate outcome of getting this great flywheel spinning? It is not just a better life, it is a new identity. The goal is not just to do the act of thinking, it is to become a thinker. What does this mean? To be a thinker is to be a creator, not a consumer. The default mind is a consumer. It consumes media, it consumes products, it consumes the opinions of others. The deliberate mind is a creator. It produces solutions, it produces ideas, it produces art, it produces value. The central question of your life shifts from what can I get to what can I build. To be a thinker is to be an agent, not a victim. An agent is a cause, a victim is an effect. The thinker understands that while they cannot always control their circumstances, they have absolute control over their response. They are the author of their own story, not a mere character being written by an indifferent fate. They shape their world from the inside out. And finally, to be a thinker is to be a student for life, not a know-it-all. The great paradox is that the more you engage in the discipline of expansion, the more you realize how little you know. The fortress of the closed mind is built on the arrogant assumption of knowledge. The temple of wisdom is built on the humble foundation of perpetual curiosity. The culmination of this entire journey is not to arrive at all the answers, but to fall in love with asking better questions. This is the prize. The identity of a creator, an agent, a lifelong student. This is the person you are capable of becoming. And so we arrive at the final and most important moment. The moment of commencement, the moment of choice. You have listened, you have understood. But knowledge without action is the last and most tragic form of self-deception. It is to be the person who studies the blueprints for a magnificent ship for a lifetime, but never once picks up a tool to begin building it. The great danger now is the paralysis of perfection. You may be thinking, this is so much, 5 disciplines, 4 habits. Where do I even begin? I need to get this perfect. And that desire for a perfect start will lead to no start at all. You do not need a perfect start. You need a humble beginning. Your mandate as you leave this session is not to master all 5 disciplines by tomorrow. Your mandate is to choose one, to commit to one single, small, achievable action that will serve as the first difficult push on your own flywheel. You must choose your anchor habit. What will it be? Will you embrace the discipline of solitude? Your action. Before this day is over, you will open the calendar on your phone or your desk, and you will schedule a non-negotiable 15-minute appointment with yourself for tomorrow morning. You will give it a title, Strategic Thinking. Will you embrace the discipline of expansion? Your action. Right now, as you are listening, you will open a new tab on your browser, and you will purchase just one of the great books on thinking, on philosophy, on biography. You will not wait. You will acquire the tool. Will you embrace the discipline of framing? Your action. You will take out a small piece of paper, a note card, and you will write down the one great empowering question that will define the next chapter of your life. Why not me? How can I double the value I bring? And you will place it on your desk or your bathroom mirror where you will see it every single day. Will you embrace the discipline of perspective, your action? You will schedule 1 hour this coming weekend for a future self meeting. You will sit down and write a letter to yourself from the person you will be in 10 years, outlining the 1 or 2 things that are most critical for you to focus on right now. Or will you embrace the discipline of self-direction, your action? For the next 24 hours, you will carry a small notebook or open a note on your phone, and you will simply become an observer of your own thoughts. You will jot down the recurring negative phrases you use, without judgment, simply to bring them into the light of your awareness. This is your commencement. One small act, one push. That is all that is required to begin. But it must be done, and it must be done now, because the stakes are higher than you can imagine. This is not just about your personal success or fulfillment. It is about the ripple effect of a single awakened mind. A mind that has been deliberately architected does not exist in a vacuum. A person who learns to think with clarity, with wisdom, and with courage becomes a force for good in a world that is starving for all three. Your family will be the first to benefit from your new clarity. You will become a better parent, a better partner, a source of stability and wisdom in your own home. Your community and your enterprise will benefit from your new creativity. You will see solutions where others see only problems. You will create opportunities. You will lead with integrity. And the world, in its own small way, will benefit from your example. The legacy of a deliberate thinker is not just in what they build, but in the inspiration they provide. It is the proof that it is possible to rise above the gravity of the default. And so we end where we began, with a choice. The choice between the unexamined life of the drifter and the deliberate life of the architect. Between the person you are today and the magnificent person you are truly capable of becoming. The ideas have been shared. The tools have been offered. The path has been illuminated. The rest is not up to me. It is up to you. Your mind is the raw, uncarved marble. Your will is the chisel. Your life is the masterpiece waiting to be sculpted. This is your moment. This is your commencement. Begin. Thank you for investing your time and your attention here today. If the work of becoming the architect of your own mind is your new commitment, I invite you one last time to subscribe to our channel so we may continue this important journey together.